Hello, we're delighted now to be joined by Massimo Marinelli, the board director of Aser Ventures. Thank you, Massimo, for joining us here today at Host City Americas. Aser has a wide range of properties in the fields of media, technology, sports, and entertainment. What kind of content do you think fans are looking for these days? And what kind of innovations are enabling brands and rights holders to satisfy this demand?
Well, our main expertise is certainly around sports, and that's where we tend to spend a lot of time. I'd say generally, though, whether it's sports or general entertainment, the most important thing that we see is making sure that there is more engagement with audiences, and that not necessarily with direct app, but making sure that there are other ways to reach that content, to interact with the main player, whether they are social media platforms or maybe additional apps that will become, we think, more and more relevant for the type of content that we offer. So I believe that innovations that have been springing over the last few years will be even more important going forward.
And as well as a whole range of innovations coming forward, different sort of technologies and ways of communicating and interacting, we're also seeing, particularly over the last few years since the pandemic, an acceleration of the kind of the role and the reach of big tech in how we sort of consume, how we interact with our world, sports included to some extent. We hear about Amazon potentially going into sports, that sort of thing. So how can a company like Aser compete if the likes of Amazon and Netflix were to go into streaming sports?
Yeah, we got one of our main investments is a company called 11 Sports that is very much operating in streaming and traditional distribution of sports content. But I'd say when I look at where we've been successful with our platform offering has been when we've had a very strong local management team. So I think it's about making sure that the content is suitable for the local viewership. Generally, there are obviously global sports, but the way that sports is consumed, that the type of content that somebody in Poland might want to watch is different from the type of content that somebody in the US might want to watch. So I think there is definitely a relevance for somebody like us. We continue to be a relevance for somebody like us. Also, I'd say we're not about competing with these platforms, but it's about finding way to cooperate and add to their platform with our capabilities. So the fact that there are more and more demand for that type of content just solidifies our thesis, and I think will continue to give us opportunities to realize returns.
And what particular sort of innovations are you looking at Aser in relation to sort of sports media technology at the moment?
So over the last couple of years, we've had these watch together opportunities, watch together talk, if you want, that allows people to effectively share emotions between themselves as they watch the same game. I think we are thinking what other services can be offered alongside streaming sports content. We've also seen the likes of DAZN announcing a betting proposition. So I think there could be more services that could come alongside it. I'd say is making sure that people can consume content in different ways, whether it's direct to consumer, but also via social media, and maybe it's in short snapshots sometimes rather than just the whole game, or adding also more let's say independent or apologies, I don't mean independent, but rather innovative content alongside the game times. So again, if I look at what we've done is doing a very good documentary with Leeds United, Take Us Home. So there are certainly more and more ways to continue that engagement that go beyond the live sports event.
And alongside the content of live sports, of course, technology enables brands and advertisers to connect with fans as well. So I noticed that Aser has recently invested in a Doha-based company called Sponix, which takes what looks like a very innovative approach to ad tech. Is this the kind of innovation that we're going to see more of, do you think, in sports media?
Yeah, so we've been interacting with Sponix for a while, and we really like what they do around advertising technology, allowing basically to replace the feed of broadcasters to put more local advertising around the perimeter of a pitch. So we think that is definitely going to be more important, creating new revenue streams for federations, leagues and clubs. They also have created a nice immersive technology allowing to effectively do immersive replay of live games. So there is a lot of new ways to interact, as I was saying, with content that Spawning is certainly trying to do, and that's why we've been, having these sort of discussions with them. So we're very, very pleased with that new investment that we're looking to make.
Sure. And how can innovations like this help create stronger connections with audiences? You mentioned sort of localization earlier on. I guess that's an important part of it.
Localization is an important part, but also is creating, in the Sponix case, also a new way to consume content, because what they basically allow you is really to put yourself in the eyes of Mbappe when he scores the next goal. So that's what we mean with immersive replay. They seem to have a lot of traction with top rights holders, and I think being able to offer that different view, that different way to consume content should also improve the ability to interact with different demographics.
Speaking of different demographic, and sport is of course hugely important to everybody globally. But what's becoming perhaps as important, perhaps one day more important, is esports to younger generation than us, shall we say? So how do you see traditional sports engaging with gaming and esports? How are you getting involved?
So we have a partnership with a major esports team in Ninjas in Pyjama in the sports place. The idea there is to try and offer services to teams that want to develop a professional sports team. They want to develop their own esports team. We definitely see esports an important component of what we offer on our broadcasting asset or content asset. There is a lot of demand for that type of content, particularly from younger demographics. And frankly, if you go and speak to teenager or even younger people, I guess, the way they really interact with those games is very important. They want to become a sports player. They see that as a career, which it is. So I think it's definitely going to be an important part of a new sports, basically, right? I mean, I think we should think of esports really as a new sports, and I think they've been able to show that they can definitely create the same sort of emotions, the same sort of attract the same sort of audiences as other professional sports.
And as well as sort of partnerships with gaming and with esports, you also work in partnership with other sports. I mean, Acer is the majority owner of Leeds United, of course, but the other major investor is the San Francisco 49ers. So how does this partnership help in terms of media reach, content creation, merchandise, and so on for both parties?
Look, in a sense, I think it's really a match made in heaven. When you look at what Acer brings with more European Asian expertise, and of course, although we didn't own a football club until the investment in Leeds United, but with Andrea Radrizzani, the founder, we were always around the broader football space, particularly on the media content arena. So we definitely had a good understanding of the commercial aspects. And of football. You then look at what the San Francisco 49ers and their team bring, is a lot of very complementary expertise, where there is growing merchandise, data and analytics, how to better sweat, and also rebuild a stadium. So there is a lot of good synergies there. I think the relationship continues to go from strength to strength. And hopefully, we can continue to look at doing things together for a long time. Generally, the club, I think, has benefited from the different inputs that the two groups have been able to offer, but also, finding the right management team to execute that vision. Whether it's Angus Kinnear, the CEO, Victor Horta, director of football, with Jesse Marsh, the new manager. So it is definitely teamwork, and so the most important part is that team work together, which I think the results show it definitely does.
Yeah, we might have time to ask a bit more about Leeds United and the future there. But we've talked about gaming, we've talked about traditional sports, but you also work in the entertainment and sort of non-sports field and potentially sort of business events and conferences as well. Some of your technology I've seen applied to. What would you say are the similarities and differences between sports and entertainment from your perspective, or are they both using similar innovations and it doesn't matter what the content is, it's just about getting content in front of fans?
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, these wars, I mean, I certainly think of sports as a category of entertainment. So, entertainment can include sports and other, let's say non live type of events. Of course, there is a live entertainment, but there is also, TV series, movies, and the likes that are non-live. So I think they're very similar. We have seen that with some of the investment that we made in our sports platform, that there is definitely a tendency to then look to expand beyond sports. Generally speaking, we look at opportunities and we are invested in things where sports is a common denominator, but that doesn't mean you can stay away from general entertainment, whether it's music. So we had a lot of experience in music, or broader events. So for us, ultimately, although sports tends to be an important piece, it's about finding the right opportunities in the broader entertainment space, I guess. And sometimes, we have always had that debate how we should define Acer. As a sports, ultimately we settle on sports media and tech investor, right? But you could argue that you could have changed one of those words with entertainment.
Yes, that's true, and I guess what makes it entertaining is the excitement of the live experience. You sort of made an important differentiation there between sort of live and well, pre-recorded entertainment, I suppose. And there's an important distinction there, and I think that's possibly why you have such committed and dedicated and passionate audiences, because they don't know exactly what's going to happen next, and you've got such dedicated followers for a club like Leeds United, myself included. The question is, I suppose, though, are we making the most of? We're marching on together here, Massimo. But the question is, are we making the most of our communities in terms of understanding who they are and what they want, and with your reach and your background in technology and data analytics, for example?
It's a good question. I mean, I think what we tend to see is that ultimately, and I think this goes, to be fair, beyond sports, but I guess in general, people don't like change, right? They used to do things a certain way, whether it's going to the stadium, get the hot dog or whatever, and consume it, a certain way, and perhaps go to the merchandising store and buy the shirt. And when you try and come up with innovations, there is always a little bit of resistance. So, we look, for example, at the NFT space, as an area where, could try and create a new ways for, fan base to interact. But then, when you try and do things in the NFT space, for example, you always get a lot of pushback, right? I mean, so it is a bit of a fine line. Generally, I think we look at these sort of innovations as a way to increase opportunities for people to get exposure to whatever the club can do, or other, sports entertainment platforms can do. I think it just needs to be done in a way that it doesn't seem too forced. It doesn't, just act as a substitute for something that is already in existence, but really increases a little bit the engagement. It's not easy, but generally speaking, also as an owner of a platform, sports platform, or indeed a football club, we also have to look at ways to continue to grow our revenue capabilities, because ultimately it's by generating more revenue that we can invest more into what these businesses do.
And what's your view of the future of NFTs? I mean, obviously you've got to get involved just in case it does continue to grow, but there seems to be sort of wobbles and skepticism about it. So I guess, what's your view?
Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, you look at what the blockchain technology has invented. I think for the world is great, right? I mean, it's a new way, very recognized, to really follow what's happening with whether it's content production, or could be even ability to track whether a T-shirt is an original shirt or not, right? So I think the broader blockchain innovation, I think, is something that everybody should recognize and be happy about. Then there are other ways that people have been trying to monetize that sort of blockchain interactivity. I think the NFT space has been one of them, and we have made an investment in a business called The Chain that effectively wants to act as a B2B service provider to rights holder that want to issue their own NFTs. And from our perspective, it's definitely something that needs to be out there as a new way to engage, particularly younger demographics. I mean, if I speak to, let's say my friends from college, not many of them would have even tried or experienced buying NFTs. But if you speak to, 20-year-old or even younger, they do that day in, day out, and they really try and enjoy that sort of space. So at the end of the day, you got to consider that it's not just about what, let's say, the more traditional sports fan, the more traditional viewer might want, but it's also making sure you create opportunities to continue and grow that engagement beyond, let's say, the traditional viewership base. So we look at those opportunities as very, very, very good for us. As I said, broadly speaking, there have been some good examples or things that have been done around the space, and I think it's important to find the best way to continue to try new way to interact without just changing or without just deleting what's already in there that people like.
Do you think we're at peak digitalization here? I mean, or is there further sort of innovation and disruption on the horizon? I mean, the way that the world has changed in terms of digitalization, the way that it's sort of invaded is the wrong word, but transformed our experience of sports and life and events generally. It feels like there's been this cataclysmic change, but is there more disruption? I mean, how do we know? But what's your view?
Well, look, I mean, I think history teaches us that it's impossible to call peak digitalization. I guess so. I'm sure there will be something new that will come up over the next few years. I mean, or maybe even months. I mean, these sort of innovations, come and go. I think you might have a very good point in the fact that some of these innovations are not there to stay. So whether or not NFTs would be something that we'll be talking as much as we do in 10 years time. To be fair, I don't know, but I do feel that blockchain technology will become more and more relevant for what we do. Then, how, in what shape that takes over, I think it's probably still a little bit uncertain. But I think the stigma that was associated with a blockchain generally, it's probably not well deserved. I mean, there is definitely, I think also if you look at what happened in the market with the performance of Bitcoins and other digital coins, are certainly not helped. But I don't look at blockchain as just a currency and how to create a new currency. I look at the digital ledger and what they can create in terms of really having a better way to track what people do. I think that is something that will continue to be part of our daily life. Will become more and more important for us.
Yes, I guess it's about sort of making the digital experience more sort of unique and kind of meaningful. And I guess when you think about things like the metaverse and what that might mean for the the future of sort of live entertainment, that poses huge possibilities, opportunities, threats. But I guess you're investing in a whole range of these different technologies and traditional sports and event sort of properties as well. So do you have any advice for rights holders out there as to what they should be investing in? Technology, brands, talent? What's most important, or is it good to have a range of assets?
I think so. I mean, to be fair, federations these days, they are very, 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 up to speed on what's going on. And also, there is more and more interest from, let's say, private capital, whether, is investment by the CVC of the wars into La Liga or French football or other similar transactions, Silver Lake in the Australian football. So generally speaking, I think there is a lot more recognition that you cannot just look at what's happening in your own small world, but you need to be more open to, other way of thinking. I probably my suggestion would be not to be afraid to try something new. I do understand that there are different objectives there, right? I mean, it's very difficult for them to come and do something that might risk a very visible revenue stream. But try and testing something like NFT is really something they shouldn't be scared of, because at the end of the day, it's about creating a new revenue stream. And as long as it's done in a way that does not alienate the fan base, that can only be a positive for everybody involved. Or indeed, advertising replacement. There has been that technology has been talked about for a while, but ultimately, if you are a viewer in Southeast Asia, you might be better off being targeted by a local advertiser than seeing something that is a local advertiser that you're never going to be able to interact with. So there are ways that I think at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, sports is definitely a great industry to be in, because it continues to be an industry where performance wins, and where you can find very good success stories of people that have been able to perform and outperform expectations, and win great competitions. I mean, you could argue Leicester, obviously, just very more recently, winning the Premier League, was definitely a surprise. So there is definitely a way of the importance of performance on the pitch. But ultimately, we've got to recognize that this particular type of sports, this sports sector, it is an industry, it's a professional sport for a reason. And therefore, there is a need to continue to create a way to make the sports more sustainable. And sometimes making the sport more sustainable means increasing revenues and making sure that there is a way to continue to invest in the space and make the broader industry sustainable.
And speaking of investing in the space, with Leeds having sort of survived relegation, thankfully, is now the time. There's been talk about expanding Leeds United's ground, Elland Road, for some time. Is now the time to do that, do you think?
Yeah, I think we do know, when you look at statistics, that the first couple of years are the most difficult ones. After you've been promoted, I think we're definitely not out of the woodwork. I mean, we still need to do a lot of work with the club, but definitely that gives a little bit more confidence to start looking more details about how to improve, how to increase really the size of our stadium. The demand is massive. So I think it would definitely be one of the projects that the management team there will spend a lot of time over the next few months. But these things are not, they can be changed with in a second, right? It does take a lot of time, a lot of planning, and hopefully we'll be able to identify the best way to proceed with that soon, and then execute it in a good time frame.
All sounds very promising. So watch this space, and thanks very, very much for your time today, Massimo. It's been great to chat with you, and we hope to meet you in person before too long, hopefully at our next face-to-face conference, Host City 2022 in Glasgow on the 15th to 16th of November. So thank you very much, Massimo Marinelli.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I hope to see you indeed in person soon. And I hope this conversation was useful for everybody. Thank you
very much. So thank you.